Good morning and welcome to another episode of What's Up with Power. I'm Justin Wagner, I'm your host for today, and we're going to have another great episode. Got content lined up on how to develop your own power-based training plan, how to roll with the punches of different events, how to fit them into your schedule. And this is something a lot of people struggle with, and honestly why a lot of people just end up getting a coach. So we'll hopefully give you some tips and tricks so you can be a little bit more of a self-doer in this regard. There's obviously still plenty of good reasons to get a coach, but if you're just looking to maybe understand a little bit better how to develop your training plan, hopefully give you some tips today that you can use to do that. So we got a good group here in Zwift. The group ready starting here in about 15 seconds. I'll be the presenter today, and we're going to have 15 minutes of presentation, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. So any questions come up during the teaching, let them fly in the Facebook comments, and I'll address them as they come up later on. Looks like our group has rolled from the starting line here. We'll get our group up to speed, and then I will. We're going to hold right around 1.5 to 1.8 watts per kilogram. Let me message everyone here. Say, stick together. Ooh, on my cursor. And we will get moving along. Oh, 1 second. Hey, I'll switch to my slides here, make the game a little smaller. Okay, so we're going to be talking about building your own training plan. Quickly recap last week. What did we talk about? We talked about which power meter should I buy, and ultimately the decision came down to several factors. It depends on everyone's situation. What's your price point? Are you wanting left only, left right power data? How many bikes do you have? Are you constantly switching between bikes? Do you need power data on all these bikes? How are you planning to record it? What protocols does your head unit use? These are all things you should take into account. So if you want to know more on that, we rewatched the session from last week. We've got it on our YouTube channel as well here on the Facebook page. You can rewatch that and get some tips on what's the right power meter to get. And so there's not one answer for everyone. And all the great tips we presented were from DC Rainmaker, who's got great information on the topic. So today's topic is on building a training plan, and we're going to break it down into these 3 areas here. Basically, the base, when we start at that bottom, you're going to pick some events, some target some specific races, fondos, whatever these events are that have meaning for you that you want to do. We're going to pick them and basically put them on the calendar. Next thing we're going to do as we move up, we're going to get more specific, and we're going to start building some structure around those key events. And then we're going to drill down into the weekly specifics, how we're going to implement each week. And this may look very familiar to a lot of you that use Training Peaks. Training Peaks has a feature called their annual training plan, and it follows this same concept, and it helps automate a lot of this for you. So I'm going to basically kind of talk through what that process is it's going through so you can understand it. I didn't write the annual training plan, and I'm just going to make some guesses as to how Training Peaks is doing it based on what I've seen it do and things. But this is a good structure to follow. Again, any questions throughout the show, let them fly in the comments. Happy to address them as I get done with the teaching. So, what are the key things to pick an event? I mean, obviously you want to do good in some events, right? So what are these? And bear in mind that you're not going to be able to do your best in every single event you do. Some events you might decide that, hey, you know what, I'm going to use this as a training tool to build for the next event. But you'll want to pick a few ones that are goals for you, or maybe you have a goal that spans multiple events. Maybe your goal is the podium on a single event. Whatever your goal is, pick some events to support that goal and get them on your calendar. And so this part's probably honestly the trickiest. I think a lot of us that use Zwift have young families, young kids, can't get outside all the time because of needing to watch children or whatnot. So we have a lot of family dynamics to work with, and so this may be something you got to coordinate with your spouse on. Spouse have an event on that weekend. How are you going to do that? So this is something that can take a while to hash out, but it's something you got to do first, right? What are those events? How many of them are there? If you tell your spouse that you want to do an event every single weekend, it might not fly unless you're actually getting a paycheck. In which case, you probably have a coach and aren't watching my show. But anyways, that's the first one. You want to pick some events and get them on the calendar. All right, so next we're gonna build some structure around our events. So we've got them on the calendar, and one thing that would help to see this would basically be to line out your season. If you were to draw a timeline with basically one interval for every week, and you were able to put down which weeks have your priority events, then what we're going to do is basically look at what are the gaps between these events. How many weeks are in between them? How much time do you have to realistically build fitness to the next level? And so once you see those gaps between your events, you're going to apply a concept called periodization. What does that mean? It basically means that most training plans are boiled down to 2 to 3 weeks of consecutively hard training or lots of volume, followed by one easier week, and you rinse and repeat. So this cycle is basically what you want to overlay on top of your events. And so what I would do, you've got that timeline, you've got starting of your season, 10-year season with all the weeks in between, see the events. Now you're going to identify, okay, hard week, easy week. But the other thing you may need to lay on top of this is you may have some family vacation plan. You want to see that as well, and you want to be able to prepare knowing that, hey, I'm not going to tell myself that I'm going to do a hard week of training on family vacation. That's probably not realistic. It could be realistic depending on what your family vacation plans are, but most of the time it's not realistic. So know that, plan for it ahead of time, be prepared for it. And so this stage, basically you're just going to go through and say, you know what, it looks like I could do 3 hard weeks, 1 easy week. You could keep doing that, or if there's a spot here where maybe you've only got, let's say you've got an event, then a week without an event, and then an event the next week. It's only 1 week in between events. You may, because you're typically going to have your easier weeks when you race to bring the volume down and let your body be ready to peak, you may need to do a hard week right in between there. So you'll have a race week, a hard week, an easy week. And as you do this more and more often, you'll get a better feel for what you're able to recover from, how your body reacts. But this is the basis. You want to know, okay, overall, is this week going to be a week where I'm pushing myself past some boundaries? Or is this a week where I'm pulling myself back a little bit to let my body recover? So, all right, so weekly specifics. All right, so we've got hard weeks down, we've got easy weeks down, we've got race weeks down. Now basically for each week, we want to assign some total TSS. So if you aren't familiar with what TSS is, we definitely have a video on that topic. We've covered it. It stands for Training Stress Score. And when you're training with power, this number comes from a combination of how hard you went on a ride and how long the ride was. Those two elements, and I should say how hard in relation to your threshold. So how hard you went in relation to your threshold and how long. Those two things will give you a number called TSS. And that basically, higher TSS in a week means you did a lot more work, and theoretically your body should be adapting and getting stronger from those efforts. So what kind of TSS numbers do we want for a hard week and an easy week? Well, there's a rule of thumb here that works out pretty good, where you take your current CTL. So some of you now are going to say, what on earth is CTL? It stands for chronic training load. It stands for it's a representation or a model of your current fitness level. And it basically is going to boil down to whatever TSS per week you've been averaging over, say, the last 6 weeks. it's going to be that average TSS per week divided by 7. So it's essentially how much TSS you can handle every day. What that number tells you, the CTL. So, okay, so what does that mean? So you take your current CTL, which is a number, by the way, that Training Peaks gives you. You just put in all your training data, and it will calculate and tell you what your current CTL is. So, and keep in mind that the CTL is going to be changing throughout your season. That's the whole goal, is to increase your CTL. As you do hard weeks, you push your CTL higher, which actually means that your harder weeks then have to get harder, push yourself again to the next level. But so if you took your current CTL, you add 30 to it and multiply it by 7, that's a pretty good estimate for what number you should be targeting on a hard week. Or conversely, subtracting 30, multiplying by 7 for rest weeks. Now, if you haven't been training very much, your CTL is going to be 0. Let's say you haven't done any workout for 42 days, CTL will be 0. So, you know, a rest week of negative 210, which is what this formula would give you, is not representative, but you'll need to basically probably gauge where you start out in that case based off of how you're feeling and how you've done in the past. So to know that if you don't have 42 days worth of training information loaded into whatever software is calculating your CTL, just know that these numbers might not be good representations for you yet, in which case you need to maybe go back to, okay, how many hours am I going to do on a hard week, until you get to that point where you've got some good history to look back on and say, you know what, okay, I've done this much TSS on a hard week, I can do it again, or I'm going to try to push further. Okay, so that's what you're doing every week. You basically want to say, okay, this week I'm going to do 800 TSS, this week I'm going to do 300 TSS, or 500. Come up with that number. That number is going to drive your decision of day-to-day workouts within each week. So, so basically, once you know how much TSS you need for an entire week, you're basically going to then move around workouts. You're basically going to plan, okay, I know this. You maybe have some structured workouts that have a very set TSS number, or maybe you have some group rides or races that you know about how hard you're going to go and how much TSS you're going to get. So using those, you basically line out and say, okay, if I need 500 TSS this week, if I rode for 5 days, I would need to average 100 TSS per day. So this is what we're looking at, right? Trying to add up your workouts to get to that number for the week. Brings up another great question is, oh wait, here we go, before we get to there. Okay, we covered this just a little bit, but basically CTL is your, how much TSS per week you've been doing divided by 7. So how much work you need to do each day to maintain your current fitness level or your current CTL. So let's say your CTL is 50. That means you would need to be doing 350 TSS each week to maintain your current CTL number. Now, I'd say maintain your CTL number. Now, obviously, you can, CTL is an approximation of your fitness. You're not going to, you can sustain a couple weeks of TSS below that number and still keep your overall level of fitness for, let's say, racing, but eventually your fitness is going to fall off if you're not training. It's totally a use it or lose it, right? If you're not working out, you get stronger, you're gonna get weaker. So again, like we talked about in the last slide, hard weeks, you're gonna go above your average TSS per week in order to get that CTL number moving up. Whole goal here is you wanna move that CTL up, 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 and then before your event, you're going to do a taper where you do less work, back off your TSS so that you're not as fatigued, you're still fit, you still have fitness, but you become more fresh. Actually, we're gonna have Taylor Thomas from Thomas Endurance Coaching's got presentation lined up. I think it's a few weeks out still, but he's going to talk about nailing that taper. So a lot of this here, specifics on the build phases, overall numbers of your TSS, where you want those to look. And then we'll bring Taylor in, who will talk specifically about, okay, I'm tapering for an event. What kind of things do I need to do for that taper? So it's all good information to have. And so once you know the number of TSS you need for a week, then you start thinking about what workouts should I add. And so knowing that goal for the week will drive that. Maybe you decide, hey, you know what? I need to take an event off the schedule because it's just gonna be too much stress. It's not inside my overall goals. Or maybe you decide, boy, I gotta pick it up. I need to put more workouts in. So these are all things, decisions you'll make once you know how much TSS you're targeting for that week. Okay. All right, so, and lastly, we all know life happens. Your plans are going to change. Your goals may even change throughout the year based on injury, sickness, family constraints, how you're doing towards the current goal. Maybe you picked a goal that halfway through the season you decide, wow, that was too easy of a goal. Or maybe you decide, yeah, right, there's no way I can get to that goal. So use that feedback and adjust your plan on the fly. So maybe you need to take, maybe you have a family member pass away, you do some travel for that, and so you need to say, hey, this is gonna be a little bit of an easier week. You need to look at that in the overall plan. Maybe you take another week that would have been a rest week, you convert it into a hard week. So these are the kind of changes you're gonna make on the fly based on how, on what happens in your life. So also, maybe you're not changing hard weeks and easy weeks, but maybe this is where during a given week, something comes up and you can't ride on a given day, and it was planned for a hard day. So maybe one of your easier days, where you have to swap rest days on a current week, right? So not necessarily so much at the macro level of changing overall week guidance, but also within the week, which days you're gonna be training, which days you won't be. All right, so in summary, we've talked about, this is something I didn't quite mention this with that last bullet. We'll get to it. So weekly training load, all this is gonna guide us towards having a total TSS number we're targeting for given weeks. Some of them will be harder weeks and easier weeks. That comes from periodization. And lastly, we're going to want to monitor something called ramp rate. Okay, so I talked about how when you're doing these workouts, you're increasing your fitness or your CTL number. Okay, so the change in your CTL from one week to the next over a 7-day period, this is a number we call your ramp rate. So as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to sustain a ramp rate of over 6 for very long. It's not very recommended. Now, the one caveat here is if you're just starting off and your CTL is 0, you can push that CTL up really fast, really quickly. But once you've got 42 days worth of power data in that system, now you want to look at that ramp rate, because you'll get a ramp rate of much over 6 right at the beginning if you have no data, and that's okay. But say you've been training for a while, racing, you're not necessarily applying any specific training goals, and now all of a sudden you want to add so much volume that you're going to have a ramp rate of 10. So that means you're increasing your CTL by 10 a week, and you're going to plan to do that for 3 weeks in a row. That is a recipe for burnout, overtraining, fatigue. It could lead to sickness. Maybe you get your immune system down. So that's kind of the governor we all look at. Keep your ramp rate at 6 most, and a ramp rate of 6 you'll definitely feel. It'll be a hard week, but you don't want to go much over that. It's just not recommended. Not that it can't be done, but it's not recommended. So that is it for the presentation on how to basically build your own training plan. If you've got any questions, I'm watching the Facebook live chat. Feel free to let them roll. They could be anything related to what we talked about today. They could be anything else, power training, Zwift related, you name it. You got some time here to ask me some questions. I also want to point out that, so we've talked a bit about Training Peaks software. So this is, they do have a free version you can sign up for, trainingpeaks.com. There's also alternatives that will give you these CTL numbers. Wattsboard.com will calculate your power numbers. I would say the big advantage that Training Peaks has over Wattsboard is integration with coaches. So you can a much tighter feedback loop with your coach. Or also, let's say you're self-coaching and you're planning your own workouts. Training Peaks has a magnificent user interface for building your own library of workouts, rinsing, repeating different weeks. You can just copy a week's worth of workouts, paste it on another week for planning ahead. So this is great when we're talking about you need to target a certain amount of TSS in a given week. They have a great user interface, all structured around this. So that's what I use for planning my training. I like it. So many self-coached people go that route. We do have a discount code if you decide to go with their premium services. There is a free option on Training Peaks as well. I don't recall offhand what the limitations are of the free service, but should you decide to go with the premium, you can get 20% off using the code ODZ20, so ODZ20, which will get you 20% off if you decide to go with Training Peaks training software. So with that, I want to thank you guys for coming and joining us today. That's the presentation. We're here every Wednesday, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. All the shows are recorded and made available afterwards. We have lots of great group rides on Zwift. Team ODZ is who we are. Check out teamodz.com/calendar if you want to jump in with one of our group rides, see what it's all about. We've also got a great Facebook group where we discuss all sorts of topics related to cycling. A lot of great support in that group. So search the Team ODZ Facebook group if you want to get joined in there. And obviously this page, we've got lots of great live video content on here daily. Later on today, we're going to have Coach Ian Murray from Evil Elf Racing is going to be on. We're going to be talking about skills and drills you need for racing. And so it's called the Skills and Drills Ride. Interactive, you jump on in there. He talks over Discord. He'll talk you through different tactics or strategies, how they would apply in a race scenario. And then you go ahead and practice those live during the ride. So check that one out. Also, we've got on Friday mornings, we've got the In the Feed Zone with JFlo or Jason Flores. Lots of great content around nutrition. What type of eating, drinking, on the bike, off the bike. Lots of great content there. So Jason does a great job with that. Also, we've got the OD Zwifters with Mitch Dangermond doing his great group workouts. You can hop in, you can join him. Those are live streamed. I'm sure there's plenty of other content I'm not even covering here. We've got some racer focus. Guys doing races, you can cheer them on while they're racing. So if you check out in the page header, we've got a schedule of most of the long-standing events that are happening on a regular basis. There's also other events that will pop up time to time that I just recommend you like the page and follow us and get notified when we go live for lots of great cycling content. So once again, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate having you. If you've liked the content, like the page, subscribe, and we'll have plenty more for you. So have a great day and come again.